This video is brought to you by Monoprice, offering you high-quality cables at everyday low prices, all with a lifetime warranty. Monoprice also has adapters, keyboards, headphones, and even gaming monitors. Click the link in the description for more information or visit monoprice.com.
Excellent!
About 5 months ago, I got this new little 4K camera, the Panasonic Lumix LX100. And of course, I planned to review it ASAP at the time. You can't really review a camera like this without using it for a while, so I held off for the time being. And the holidays rolled around and that was a blur. Then there was CES right after that, where I actually used this camera pretty extensively for my CES coverage, but those were other videos, not a review on this camera. Then there was February and March, where I dimly recall focusing my efforts on the ongoing Arctic Panther Epic water-cooled build, as well as setting up a website for myself so I could have a home base and a store so people could support me by picking up a high-quality shirt like this one, link in the description. But what now? Well, let's be honest here. I am a self-taught camera person for the most part, especially when it comes to still photography. So if you want the full treatment, I will direct you to some real reviews of this camera that I found very helpful in my personal research. So in the description, there are also links to LX100 videos by Dave Dugdale, the Camera Store TV, and Digital Rev TV, all very good videos. Today's video is going to focus on why I chose the LX100, how I use the LX100 specifically for video, and I'm also going to be covering some of the accessories that I've gathered together to kind of aid me in my one-man mobile video production tasks. But let's start with a quick LX100 overview. I think of this as kind of a prosumer point and shoot with full manual capabilities for about $800 US street price right now. It is small, but it is still larger than most point and shoots. It's got a protrusive lens and it's got quite a bit of heft. This thing just feels really, really solid. They've actually wedged a lot of stuff into this pretty small housing, and it shares a lot with the GH4, its kind of big brother in the DSLR space. Vital stats include a large 60 megapixel micro four thirds sensor, the same one from the GH4, although the LX100 doesn't make quite as much use of it. It only goes up to about 12.7 megapixels. There's an aspect ratio switch right up here that will crop that sensor to your desired aspect ratio, but since I primarily shoot in 16:9, I really haven't used that a whole lot. The lens is fixed, which is to be expected in a camera this small, but you'll find a lot of praise in the reviews for this configuration. Many of the reviewers have compared this lens to DSLR lenses that cost upwards of $1,000. Focal range is 24 to 75 millimeters, meaning it can do pretty wide angle with a little bit of telephoto. It's not going to do like a super zoom, but it can zoom in a little bit. The aperture can go super wide, f1.7 at 24 millimeters, and it only goes down to f2.8 when you're all the way zoomed into 75. It's really, really easy to get a DSLR comparable image with this camera, and that wide aperture and large sensor gives you great thin depth of field when you want it. Macro capabilities are also amazing. This camera can get in really close for some nice detailed shots. The LX100, as previously mentioned, shares lots of similarities with the GH4 as well, including the Venus engine, 4K video recording at 30 frames per second, and a host of software features like the live edge detection while recording, which makes focusing on the kind of smallish 3-inch 1024x768 LCD display a lot easier. It's also great for shooting 1080 at 60 FPS, now that YouTube supports that, and I have done at least one video and people said, ooh, it's nice, the motion looks really nice. Anyway, I need to move on here, but there's just so many features to mention. The aperture dial on the lens feels great. It allows for manual control of your aperture. The focus ring, which actually works well, and you can adjust it while one-handing the camera. In fact, one-handed use of this camera is surprisingly easy thanks to the well-placed grips that are on the right side. Thumb grip here as well as fingers grip up in the front. You have control of the shutter speed up at the top here, as well as an exposure compensation dial. And then other controls, which you might not immediately find intuitive if you're a DSLR user, but they're not too tough to figure out for ISO and all that other stuff. Let's see, what am I forgetting? It's got a viewfinder right here, which is okay. There are some reprogrammable buttons here at the back, but you can't reprogram everything. That's what a lot of reviews also mentioned, that we're hoping for a firmware update to this camera, which maybe allows you to reprogram some of the easy to hit buttons up here on the top. The camera does also have Wi-Fi built in with NFC for pairing this with a tablet or smartphone. Just hold it up to the side right here. Then you can use your tablet or smartphone with the Panasonic camera app to control the camera, and you can also do a live view. So if you're selfieing yourself, you can actually see yourself in that live view, since the LCD on the camera doesn't articulate or swing up or anything like that. Up to 25,600 ISO range for low light shooting, built-in time-lapse function. Okay, I'm going to stop now about the camera overview because the list really goes on and on. So considering this range of features, answering the question of why I bought this camera sounds pretty straightforward, right? First of all, I wanted a portable camera because I'm always too paranoid to take my Canon 5D Mark II out on trips. The LX100 isn't exactly a pocket camera, but it's way more compact than a DSLR, especially the 5D Mark II. Next up, I wanted the largest sensor possible. There's really no substitution for the image quality you get with a large sensor. Micro Four Thirds is about as good as you can get in this size range. Third, the built-in lens solution on this camera is absolutely beautiful. It has a wide range of configurations, and since I mainly shoot videos about hardware, I don't really need the telephoto. 24-75 is just fine for me. So add in the manual controls in video mode, another feature that's really hard to come by in compact point-and-shoot cameras, and the 4K shooting mode, which has allowed me to dabble in higher res stuff, and I knew the LX100 was my camera. As mentioned, I got this camera to take on trips and for on-the-go video, but I found it pretty useful for some other situations as well. The size and the macro capabilities make it great for grabbing quick close-ups without having to pull my Mark II off the tripod, and I know that I will be using the time-lapse feature built in here very soon. I did want to cover some of the accessories that I picked up for this camera as well, starting with my awesome 64 gig micro SDXC cards from Kingston. This is model SDCA3/64GB. 64 gigabytes means I can pretty much shoot all day at 1080, or at least be way less concerned about space if I'm shooting in 4K. I have a new one here because, one wasn't enough. These are also great for taking on the go because they're waterproof, shockproof, X-ray proof, and temperature proof. They have 80 megabytes per second writes, which means that they can handle up to 4K by 2K recording. 90 megabytes per second reads means fast transfer times when you're copying from this back to your computer. And the Kingston brand, which means these aren't budget knockoffs, so I can actually trust them with my data. And of course they do come with an adapter here, so if you're using a standard SD camera, you can pop them right in. If anyone has a GoPro or an action camera similar to it, made for rough and tumble type work, these are absolutely perfect for that. I also have Kingston's MobileLite G4 USB 3.0 card reader, which is very portable and small, and it handles just about any SD card format. The USB 3.0 transfer speeds, that means night and day difference from USB 2.0 for transferring with video files. If you have a laptop with only a USB 2.0 card reader, get one of these if you do video. You will thank me. Now I also wanted to show you guys version 2.0 of my mobile rig, which I first kind of used at CES. I still have the large flexible tripod from Monoprice down here on the bottom, but I've removed those ghetto zip ties in favor of this cheese bar, which I'm using kind of as an offset for the camera, the connection to the camera and the tripod at the top. And then my Zoom H1 mic fits at the bottom down here off to the side. I've added a little tiny ball head so that I can articulate the mic hanging off there to point at me if I'm narrating, or to point at my subject if I'm shooting someone in front of the camera. And then there's also a shock mount to reduce handling noise, of course. I could have put the mic on top here using the camera's flash shoe, but I felt that made it pretty top heavy, and having it lower down on the mic allows me to be able to look at the screen while I'm rambling about whatever I'm shooting, and then the mic's right there, so it picks me up pretty well. Worked great at CES when my voice was gone and you could actually hear me even though there was lots of ambient noise. I find this to be a pretty fun and unique setup, and I really like it when I'm walking around at events and I see people with these crazy big camera rigs and tripods and everything, and I'm like, oh, I just got this. I feel like this has been a very positive video so far, and I'm cool with that, honestly, but there are a few disappointments I've discovered in my time with the LX100 thus far. First off, there's no discrete mic input, meaning you're limited to the in-camera mic, which is passable, but it picks up a lot of camera hardware noise if you do anything while you're recording, like zooming in or out, or adjusting the aperture via the aperture adjustment ring. It's going to pick that up internally. Like an 1/8 inch input or something would be really nice to have here. This is why I record sound separately with my Zoom H1 and I sync it up in post. I already noted the lack of an articulating or flip up screen on the back like Sony's RX100 Mark III, which would be great for vlogging, on the fly shooting, anytime you need to like frame yourself up and I can't see the screen. The Wi-Fi enabled phone app works around this, but it's just a little bit more cumbersome and time consuming to set up. Finally, since I couldn't find this information anywhere prior to buying the camera, I was really sad to learn that there's actually no live HDMI out. There is a micro HDMI port, yes, but its only use right now is for playback of recorded clips that are saved in the camera, because that's something lots of people do, right? You connect your camera to your TV and watch videos straight from the camera. I don't know, maybe some people do that, but I sure don't. I really wanted to hook this camera up to a capture card for live streaming or direct-to-computer video capture, but unless Panasonic or some third party develops some new firmware, it's just not currently possible. That makes me sad. Overall though, I am immensely satisfied with the LX100 despite some of its limitations. For me, it's about the image quality, the fantastic lens, the portability, and the next-gen features like 4K recording. Now, I will be continuing to use this on my trip to Computex at the beginning of June, so stay tuned for that coverage. Let me know in the comments what you think of this camera, and if you have at all been considering the jump to 4K as products like the LX100 make their way into the consumer space. Don't forget to hit that like button as well. Links to all of this stuff, accessories included, are in the video description down below. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, and as always, thanks for watching.